Night market lights. The guards relied on Chase. The night market was held tonight, and this was one with no workforce trading. The cult would be there. Each gang held the corner of the market closest to their territory. Merc's offer of paid guards had been refused, and he was not happy about it. He'd ordered Chase and a few other especially stealthy guards to keep an eye out for any disturbances. The Plaids had brought so many supplies, they clogged up guards' path back. The thing about nightfall with the Plaids was they closed down all the blocks that led into their territory every night. They had traps set up instead of posing sentries, so it would be extremely dangerous to try to get around them. Chase made a jagged circuit of the market as dusk began to fall. Nothing seemed to be wrong. It was lit more boldly tonight, though. Tents were set up across the borders of a large parking lot and street, and people from different gangs had started speaking casually to each other. Even the cult was there, and nobody was shooting at each other, which was good. People were using small torches and candles on the tables to draw attention to their wares. Chase was supposed to look for how many people everyone had nearby. He checked them out, and there weren't too many of them, except maybe the Plaids. It would be good to check how well armed the people at the market were, but he was terrified to go that close. Last time someone used torches at night market, over near the guards' base where it used to be held, they had been bombed. He was about ready to go into the main street where the vendors were lined up when there was a pop-crack, a small explosion. Not again. Chase dropped instinctively and stuffed in his earplugs. He didn't like them, but he needed his hearing for stealth. It gave him a huge advantage over those deafened oldies like Shorty. He slapped his forehead when it occurred to him. The Plaids had closed the guards' retreat. This was revenge on the guards for failing to keep the peace last time. He snuck down alongside a warehouse wall. Its roof had been partly blown off, partly collapsed. He wanted to crouch into the broken rubble down closer to the market, which had been bombed in the first bombing. There was no way he could help while he was visible, so he'd have to come in from the guard's access point. No use in being just another fatality. He heard a voice from the tower just above him, a structure attached to the old wall for centuries. He recoiled and slunk down by the wall before he could be seen. There was no shadow on this side, but light was diffused. That worked to his favor. Dressed in a pale gray shirt and shorts with mostly lifeless-looking skin, he didn't make much contrast against the dusty white clapboard. Another sentry replied, just audible through the earplugs. "Don't distract me, I'm targeting. If you target Merc, the ghost will come for you." "Not funny," the first guy answered. Chase glanced up, but couldn't make them out. He was right under the platform they were laying on. Chase snuck back to the guards section. The cultists and the Plaids were hacking up their remains while the Shivers watched. The Preppers had retreated. The Plaids and the Shivers made a full-on barrier between buildings. Chase watched as a short guy called Len from the guards bull-rushed the Shiver side. One of them laughed, stepped aside, and tripped him, then stepped on his heel and stabbed him in the back of the leg. He started screaming as they stabbed him again and again. They looked like they were actually enjoying it. Chase stared. How was he going to get back through that? Meanwhile, the guards' barricades would be closed, the doors shut and chained tight. Chase was too late to get home that night. Dad was going to be pissed. He grimaced, then darted into the road and ducked under a piece of pavement that had been tilted up in an explosion. "Excuse me," he whispered into the crevice as he huddled into it, in case he was scaring any little creatures. He closed his eyes, hoping no one had seen him. Finally, he allowed himself to peek out. Neither sentry overlooking the road had moved. He might be safe. Nobody would worry about his tiny spot. There was less screaming and more talking noises after a while. He darted out and around a corner, glancing around cautiously. Someone crossed a rubble-covered path nearby. He crept back and hid behind a chunk of fallen cement. He pursed his lips tight, desperately hoping he could hold out until darkness covered his retreat from the area. Then he heard a copter, and then there were explosions. He felt the explosions of air and debris rip past his hiding place. He clenched down next to the cement block. Things fell, a terrifying pour of rubble from one of the buildings nearby onto the street, clogging it up further. Nothing fell on him. The explosion stopped. Finally, he pulled out his earplugs. Sounds were sharp and distinct. So many crickets, so many mice. He smelled blood and dust. It was in his teeth. Peering out, he could see the road and a warehouse beyond. He couldn't go home and face his dad tonight. He just couldn't. Yeah. Now it was dark enough. He crept out slowly to give his muscles a chance to wake up, then darted across the road, deeper into Plaid territory. They were the worst at guarding their territories. A familiar warehouse loomed over the alley, warehouses on both sides, but this was brick with a ton of windows. One of the boards had a nail hammered into it. He lifted it by the nail and it hinged on the corner. It was a secret entrance he'd found previously. He clambered inside, shut the board over the hole behind him, and slumped down against the wall. It always shocked him how exhausted he was after a night like this. His heart still thumped in terror of going home. He didn't have to go. No, it was the only place to go. He did have to. Shades crossed between the pillars in the huge, musty warehouse. They were just shades. Everyone saw them. You knew when they were watching, and stayed away. But not Chase. He heard them whispering. He made out the word, "Hi," from one of them. A deep, hoarse whisper. You weren't supposed to talk to them. It was just standing there staring. Chase stared back aimlessly. He was so lonely. "Hi," the shade said again, then added something in a whisper that Chase couldn't make out. "Didn't catch that," Chase said softly. The shade stared into him, then loomed bigger and bigger, approaching. It glided toward him, then through him, hissing the words, "Don't go home." It was gone for a moment. Then he realized it was still standing in the middle of the warehouse, staring at him. Chase closed his eyes, grimacing as tears pressed through. "I know," he whispered, blinking them back. But he had to.